Thank you so much for being there. I'm very happy to welcome you here for this roundtable regarding Armenian heritage and jewelry culture. Just a forward, I want to thank you, the Armenian Jewellery Association, for support and help for organizing this roundtable, because it was impossible to do without your help. And it's a very interesting topic that for so many people are ignoring about it. And so I'm very happy it was possible to organize it regarding it inside the Gem Geneva. And to explain shortly why I decided to organize this roundtable, I began this year a master's thesis about Armenian community in Paris. And so, long short story, it's a passionate and inspiring journey. So we are here for 45 minutes to an hour because it's the end of the journey. And so I want that you have time for closing your booth, finishing quietly the fair. So we will finish the discussion with public question regarding anything else you want to talk about. First of all, I want to introduce the panel which here for this roundtable. Vartkess Knadjian, you're the chief officer of the Bakes and Strauss, one of the oldest diamond company based in Antwerp, founded in 1789. You born in Ethiopia, lived, raised, studied in UK, and now live in Geneva. And you're also, more important, one of a co-founder in 1997 of the AGM. So Fanny, you are a French historian based in France and working on Armenian history about the diamond era in the 17th century. And you're the author of the monography about a diamond era in France, L'Arménien du Roi Soleil, which is a new biography and a very, very interesting story. And we have last minute change, but I'm very happy to welcome Ivette Nersesyan-Stephanopoulos. You are the president of the AGA and you're based in New York. True? Yep. Yeah. So to begin, I have to talk about Fanny and a handover for an introduction about Armenian history and more particularly the diamond era into the 17th century and what's about this heritage.
Yes, I will talk about Armenians and diamonds along the Silk Road in the 17th century. Its story is very important, and one of the most important link between Armenian community and diamond can be illustrated by the magnificent golden throne decorated by more than 1,000 stones and gems, diamonds offered in 1659 by an Armenian Zakaria Sherimanian and also other Armenian merchants of New Julfa near to Ispahan, established in Madras. So this throne was offered to the Tsar Alexei in Russia. Famous Armenian families were involved in the diamond trade as the Sherimanian. One of them, Zakaria, presented that throne to the Tsar in order to guarantee privileged access to Armenian on the Russian road, especially to export more easily diamond and also silk luxury commodities. All Armenians were not able to trade diamond and gems. They were especially Armenians of New Julfa and Isfahan suburbs who were involved in luxury trade among India and all around the world. But what had they this specialty in trade? In 1604, Shah Abbas first deported Christian Armenians to New Julfa in order to have the possibility to trade silk and receive benefits because it is forbidden for a Muslim man to wear silk clothes. In this way, Armenians from New Julfa were formed to be luxury traders. Very soon they learned several languages, mathematics, currencies, in a school dedicated to trade in New Julfa near to Isfahan. Then these famous merchants emigrated to India and formed several diasporas in Surat, in the Malabar coast, but also in Madras, in the Coromandel coast. Their network were highly extended all around the world. It was very impressive, this Armenian network at the time. Several famous Armenian merchants were involved in diamond trade for their own count or for an East India company. As Markara Vanchins, I've written a book, a new biography about this man who became a director of the French East India Company. David Mirman, Anton Boros Chelebi, Agade Matthews, Gerak, Khojaminas, and other famous Armenians. A lot of gems were brought at the demand of the Tuscany Grand Ducate to honor the Medicean couples. So their importance in the 17th century, diamond trade was very important all around the world. In the 17th century, the only diamond mine known was in Golconda Sultanate. Several Armenians formed part of the Mughal government, but also of the Golconda realm, as the example of Anazarbek, Armenian renegade, first politic advisor of Abdullah Qutb Shah, the Golcondan kings in the 17th century. He was lapidary and diamond dealer. He explains the diamond cut in the Golconda fort as a very secret and respected work. It is interesting to mention the double perspective of Jewel at the time. On the first hand, the aesthetic perspective, and on the other hand, the therapeutic perspective. For instance, the bezoar stone could be worked in a jewel and also reduced as a powder to apply in cataplasm in case of a snake bite. The Golconda diamonds were conveyed to Masulipatam port, the city, in 7 days, and after they were brought to Europe by ships. In 1670, Markara Vanchins, a famous Armenian merchant from New Juffa, founded of the count of the French East India Company, the Masulipatam French factory. Using his communitarian network, Markara brought Armenian diamonds and gems for the French company. One of the most important advantages of Armenians in diamond trade was their capacity to speak several languages: Persian, Portuguese, Italian, Armeno-Kipchak, lingua franca, Armenian also, but also Indian languages. They talk also Persian language, of course, because they born in New Juffa. And the current language of the Mughal court and the Indian sultanates was Persian. So they traded diamonds, and diamonds were usually paid with corals, emeralds, and silver or gold bullion. According, for instance, to the testimony of Georges Roch, in his book entitled De la manière de négocier aux Indes, he was a contemporary of Markara Vanchins, the Armenians knew all the commodities that might be traded, and they traded only the most precious. Gems were an important part of their trade because they were more easy to transport than silk or cotton. Moreover, if the diasporic advantage for diamond trade were common to Sephardic and Armenian communities, they had each one their own most important partner. For example, the Sephardic communities dealt more with the Dutch company, whereas Armenians dealt more with the English East Company. The Armenian network in the 17th century was developed in each Levant scale and free taxis ports in Occident as Smyrna, Livorno, and Venice. The Julfan Armenians were established there in a family and community network. The Sherman family firm, for instance, employed more than 150 employees, and most of them were Armenians of New Julfa, but also from Agolis in Nakhchivan, along Surat, Goa, Madras, Masulipatam, Bandar Abbas, Alep, Alexandret, Kayseri, the Silk Road, Madras, Livorno, and Amsterdam. They had a key role at the beginning of economic, religious, social, and ethnic network at the beginning of the mondialization, the globalization. They lead an important part of the international gem market. So clearly adapted to the diasporic nations, the diamond trade was mainly in the hands of the Armenians and Sephardic diaspora, cosmopolitan nations. A lot of Indian gemmology vocabulary entered in the Armenian language. Armenians of New Julfa in the Safavid Empire emigrated to India, especially in Madras, in the Coromandel coast. And they became favorite intermediaries from Orient to Occident. They brought Golconda diamonds and silk to Occident with precise knowledge of the aesthetic and economic values of these luxury goods. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fanny, because it was really interesting and this great insight and well documented about your researches. And so, regarding what you said, my first question is for you all, as we understand that the links between jewelry industry and Armenian people are really old, and it's really interesting to know how it's ancient. So, for all of you, that do you feel Armenian, even if you don't live in Armenia, for some of you, and how do you live this heritage, this long heritage?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for having us and for organizing this panel. Really special for us Armenians to be here. And thank you, Fanny, for a very informative, few minutes. It's incredible how far we've gotten and really started from 1700s and onwards. So, with that, we have been in jewelry for centuries, as we all now realized. The question is, do I feel Armenian? Yes, born and raised in Armenia, Yerevan, feel very Armenian. I left Armenia 25 years ago. I live in the United States, in New York City. Anything I do within gem and jewelry industry for the past 25 years always has a way to bring me back and keep me connected to my culture, my heritage, whether it's working with local communities in Armenia or visiting Armenia, and now having the privilege of heading the association and connecting Armenian industry and the diamond and gem and jewelry industry community globally, and really doing some fascinating work outside as well as inside of our motherland. So really Armenian in and out, yes.
It looks so. Vartkess?
Thank you very much. I was born in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, and my father was a watchmaker. He represented a number of Swiss watch companies in Ethiopia. And my dream was to join his business after my studies. But sadly, because of circumstances in history, I couldn't. And in 1976, I ended up working for a company, Strauss, which took me to Antwerp, which was then the center of the world diamond business. And I reconnected, I suppose, with Armenian jewelers and diamantes in Antwerp. We didn't dominate Antwerp like we used to dominate the diamond business in the 17th, 18th century. But one particular family, in those days, 85% of the rough diamonds that were distributed globally were done so by a company called De Beers. And the remaining 15%, I think 65% of the remaining 15% was controlled by an Armenian family called the Aslanian family. And they were very much the center part of the Armenian community in Antwerp. And there were a number of other Armenian diamantes who were present in Antwerp and who managed to keep this heritage and legacy of our history alive.
Fanny, have you something to add?
I think our heritage is very important to preserve, and our Armenity is not only a feeling, but is our roots. And in order to preserve our identity, it's important to share culture. And Armenian characters, Armenian culture is a way to unite all the Armenians spread all around the world. Armenian for Armenia, from Armenia, but also diaspora.
When I listen to you, it's really moving to understand that there is something very important about the notion of community and to be part about something like, as you said, family. So could you define it as an Armenianness, something very special to be Armenian, and about the way you live this Armenianness? And how do you define this one? Is it different from other communities? And there is a very special jewelry culture for Armenian people.
I think because we didn't have a nation, we were a diaspora dispersed globally. The community was very, very important. And we assimilated. The Armenians were very good to assimilate wherever they lived, but they maintained their cultural identity, they maintained the community life. And even when you look at the history of the Armenians in 17th, 18th century Asia, where they opened churches in places like Rangoon, in Penang in Malaysia, in Singapore, they assimilated in the societies there, lived the full life, but they maintained their cultural identities. And I remember as a young boy growing up in Ethiopia, we were Ethiopian, but we were always Armenian. We had the church, we had the community, and that was very important.
Yeah, thanks, Vartkess. I'll add from personal experience, having left Armenia and then getting involved in a community and a diaspora. I am amazed the work that Armenians who live outside of Armenia do to maintain their spirit, their culture, their history, their story. Without that, over the years, Armenians would have disappeared amongst other cultures. It's incredible how there are millions of Armenians outside of Armenia who speak the language, go to church, have schools, build communities, yet they've never even been to Armenia. But the depth of the pride of them being Armenian and the importance of keeping the culture and the history and passing that down to the next generation, it's incredible. And every day I'm amazed with the next generation that continues speaking the language and knowing all the history. And I hope we continue doing that way and get even stronger.
And is it easy to preserve this culture with globalization? Is it easy to preserve this culture with globalization?
It is not easy. It takes a lot of work and commitment for new parents. It's a lot of time commitment. But there is a conscious objective to be part of the community and visit the church and send their children to Sunday school and make sure you send your children to their local Armenian school, which takes a lot of work from every community to maintain, find sponsors, and make sure the school survives. And it is not easy. it's a very strong nation, again, very proud nation. Somehow, wherever they are in the world, they've done a wonderful job with it.
Fascinating. Thank you. You talk about your family just a few minutes ago. I'm curious to know, and maybe the public too, to know the journey of your family into jewelry industry. Because you two and Vartkess have links with jewelry industry since a lot of time. Not exactly yours, Fanny, but you began to work about diamond dealer in the Armenian community from the 17th century. So for Fanny, why have you decided to work on these topics? And for Ivette and Vartkess, can you tell me more about your journey into this industry and the link with your family and how you want to pursue this history?
Well, my father was also born in Ethiopia like me, and he ended up in Geneva in 1934 accidentally, and he attended the École d'Horlogerie here in Geneva, and he graduated in 1939 as a maître horloger, and it took him a number of years to get back to Ethiopia because 1939, if you remember, was the Second World War. And he had arrived as an Ethiopian citizen, and whilst he was in Geneva, he became an Italian because the Italians conquered Ethiopia. And once he graduated, he couldn't stay in Switzerland. They were very strict about immigration in those days. They still are. So he went to Italy, and from Italy, eventually, he traveled to Ethiopia, where he started his business. My dream was watches, but I couldn't fulfill. But I was very lucky through a family friend to join the company Strauss. And I'm delighted to see Thomas Faber here, who interned with Strauss in the 1960s in London, as did Varuzhan Atamian. And the company was founded in 1789. And I was very lucky to be able to do a management buyout in 2003, and in 2006 transit the company away from diamonds into high-end Swiss watchmaking. So that has been my journey.
Very nice too.
My journey, this is not a family business for me. I'm a first generation in an industry. I don't design, I don't make jewelry. I am a connector, I'm a networker, and while seeing the incredible talent within our Armenian community, of course the bigger jewelry industry, but my focus here, especially this week here, it's the Armenian community. My role, and I bring all my experience and expertise of 25 years, having worked for the Beers Group and GIA and different brands in the US, and strong business development background. I bring all that experience, and I want to bring it back into the community and find a way to identify the talents wherever they might be in the world and give them the visibility and a large platform to showcase the talent that comes from generations back, and as a way to preserve the history and our cultural heritage.
Okay, thank you. Fanny, I'm curious to know more.
Yes, for my part, it was a very long process. I decided to came back to my roots. I decided to learn Armenian and learn the history of Armenians. And now I am doing my PhD about Armenian diaspora all around the world along the Silk Road. And along the Silk Road, I found a lot of documents which referred to diamonds and gems, and it was unexpected to find a lot of documents. I thought to find more about silk, but in fact the diamond trade was very important for the Armenian community in that time.
Talk about jewelry culture, talk about jewelry making, and so I have a question about training and preservation about the know-hows, because there's in some countries there are schools, there is training, well-known, ancient, famous. So I have a question about Armenia. I don't know if you have the answer, but I'm curious to know how is make the trend about jewelry in Armenia, and is there a true we talk about jewelry culture at large, but there is a jewelry culture in the making, something very special, Armenian technique in the making of jewelry, and something it's necessary to preserve. It's necessary to have school to make it, or if something more at large in the preservation of the know-how.
Is it necessary to preserve? Absolutely. Are there specific techniques? Yes, they're coming from generation. You know, in reality, whether it's unique to Armenians or not, I think anything that's made by hand and carved by hand and really handmade, anything by these talented hands, it's incredible. And it does take training, and it does take time to learn that skill. So currently, I do not believe there is a school in Armenia for that purpose. We at IJA and with our board, we have 18 board members. They're globally placed, geographically speaking. We recently announced a partnership with Tumo Studios. Tumo is a technological, incredible school that's also global, but focused in Armenia. They just opened a studio that's here to train for arts and any type of art, and our partnership with them will bring in experts from global communities to train students in Armenia who are interested to join this path, to bring in experts locally who are some of our designers who are from there, who will be really working hand in hand and mentoring the next generation, so we continue preserving.
Kness, do you want to add something?
No, this Tumo initiative is something which is fascinating, because Tumo is an after-school school. It's free. There's no exams to get in. There's no diploma at the end. A student goes and works online. Whatever work they do is recorded. That becomes your CV in a way. And you have 14 to 15 different modules to choose. And jewelry and gemmology is going to be an addition to the existing models. And Tumo is just not only present in Armenia, but it's become a global phenomenon now. When Angela Merkel visited Armenia 6 or 7 years ago, she was taken to Tumo and she said, no, we want Tumo in Germany. And presto, there was one in Berlin very quickly. Annie Hidalgo from Paris went there. She opened one in Paris. There's a big Tumo opening up in Los Angeles, where the state of California is investing $25 million to open it. So this initiative is going to be a global initiative. And I'm delighted to say this is a soft Armenian power.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you to all to be so generous in your explanation, because it's absolutely fascinating to hear from you. My last question are more about the role of the AGA, because I mean it's very important to know more about this association. And so my first question is for you, Vartkess, because I want to understand, and I'm so perplexed too, why have you decided to create the Armenian Jewelry Association in 1997? Why do you feel it was necessary to create an association? We talk about preservation of cultures, preservation of know-how, but why making an association?
I went to Armenia for the first time in 1993, and I was invited to Armenia to go and visit the diamond polishing factory based just outside Yerevan. When the Soviets discovered diamonds in Yakutia in the 1950s, initially they didn't know what to do with it. They secretly sold their production to De Beers, even though there was a sanction at that time. But they were thinking long term, and eventually they opened up 9 polishing factories around the Soviet Union. And one of them was based in Yerevan, in Armenia, just outside Yerevan. And the way they used to operate, the rough diamonds would come from Moscow, polished in the factory, and the polished would go back. They would then reassort the polished diamonds and then sell it globally. So when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, this whole setup just collapsed from one day to the other. And you had this factory with 3,000 people working and with no production. So I was very fortunate that the people who owned Bax & Strauss in 1993 supported me to support the Shoag workshop. And we used to take rough diamonds from Belgium to Armenia, polish it there. Obviously, they reduced the number of people from 3,000 to 500. But we polished our diamonds in Armenia, brought them back, and we sold them in the market in Antwerp. And whilst I was doing these trips regularly, I noticed that in order to be able to be involved in nation building, we had to bring together this global community of Armenian jewelers, stone merchants, with a strong history, legacy from the 18th, 17th century, to try and create a platform in Armenia for Armenian jewelers to be able to face the global community. So I was helped in this with a very good friend of mine, Pierre Akelian, who was based in Canada. And it helped that Pierre had just served a term as president of the Canadian Jewelers Association. So together we worked together to contact Armenian jewelers globally, and the initial interest was very negative. But we managed to get, I think, 10 or 12 people to our first meeting in Yerevan in 1996 or 97. And the enthusiasm we managed to bring in resulted in a first official meeting in Basel in 1998. And from there on, we just created the association with the objective of bringing the global community together to network together, but also at the same time to help the industry grow in Armenia. That was the objective in the history of the AJA.
And I'm sure the girls are all the same, Ivette. Let us know what is the project and the goal now for the association. As I read a few months ago that 7% of the jewelry production in the world were made by Armenian people, so it's just amazingly big. And I'm quite sure that most of people are ignoring about that. So what's the future project and the goal, and what you pursue as mission with the association?
Thanks, Vartkess, for giving the background. Mission hasn't changed. Mission continues, remains the same, uniting Armenians globally, Armenians in the industry globally, regardless the segment of the industry they're in, to network, to give business to each other, and then together be strong and support Armenian jewelers in Armenia, whether it's with knowledge, with materials, or with just supporting to export production that's being made in Armenia. Incredible production organizations are there at a really high quality, and one of our goals is to continue working with local jewelers and now manufacturing on a manufacturing side and give them visibility similar to what we're doing with the designers here, but at different platforms, so they can easily export production in Armenia. Armenia is a very small market, so opening those borders will be very important for them. Another project that's we just launched, we mentioned already the TUMO, which is the educational element for it, and our annual design competition. We're hoping to continue with it and then turn it into annual. This is the second annual, so no pressure on Varjan Atamian, who's been a huge support with this association and this project. We understand and see the interest within the young creative designers, and we aim to continue it. So a short goal, those three, and I'm sure we'll work on things as we become more powerful.
Thank you so much. And you're right to say that there is a wonderful talent in Armenia, because I discovered some of them during the exhibition, and it's very amazing and very inspiring. And so for most of them, we do not know in Europe. So that's very amazing platform to be there and to introduce them. So thank you so much for your answer, to generously answer and sharing all with the public. Maybe there is some question in the public, so it's time to ask if you want. And after we will finish quietly this round table. So thank you so much.
Regarding the history of Armenians in the diamond trade on the Silk Road, is there any literature, any books, anything like that, or is this, I know it's your area of study, so I'm assuming you have a little more knowledge on it. But.
There is a few things, but we can find works about a very good historian who is David Sebou Aslanian. You can search all of his work is about Armenian community, Armenian trade in the 17th century. You can find about diamond. There is also the PhD of Sona Tajirian about gems and Armenian family. There is also the thesis of Ina Bagdjan's McCabe, the Shah silk for Europe silver. It's also very important, but it's too few for all this history. And there is also, yes, I forgot my book. This is a new biography about Markara Vanchins. The title is L'Arménien du Roi Soleil, le destin d'un oriental au service de la Compagnie française des Indes. It was published five times, and I won the award of the best biography for it. So I'm very proud. Yeah. Perhaps the translation is in work in progress. Soon.
So thank you very much for the lecture and for all your opinions about the current state of the Armenian jewelers' craft and also gems trade. As far as I understand from my discussions also in other jewelry shows, Armenia during the Soviet time has also been a hub for the chemical industry, and thus there had been concentrated also the lab growing of gemstones, which just hadn't been mentioned so far. I believe that also played a role in keeping the jewelry industry alive. Do you have any insights on this, or?
That is not none of that is happening in a current state. I don't know if it did before my time or in the past, but right now there is no lab-grown gemstone industry in Armenia.
Yes, I had a question for Marie. Because I know you're working, I'm impressed because as non-Armenian, you're very interested into the Armenian history in the jewelry. And I know you're working on a study about the Armenian jeweler maker who are working and still working But I think you're doing it from 1920 to 1940, or is this your period?
Yes, the half of the,
So
the
maybe
first
you can
half
speak
of the
about it.
20th century.
If you don't mind explaining what you're looking for, I mean, what you're doing.
So, as you know, I'm not Armenian, but I grew up in Valence. This is a Armenian town in France, in the Rhone Valley. And so my grandparents lived in Fontlosier district, which is one of the Armenian districts of Valence. And so all our neighbors are Armenian. And so where there's not Armenian, they're Italian. So, and when I began in jewelry industry, my first close friendship and the master who helped me, trained me, were most of them Armenian. So since a lot of years, I have close link with Armenian community. And so when I decided to began a study for my master's at the university. As I said when I prepared the roundtable that I could choose a subject where already covered and easy to make, but I realized how finally everybody ignoring the role of Armenian community in jewelry industry and how it's strange that a community is so strong involved in industry and that so many people didn't know the role of this community. So as I'm working in Paris into jewelry industry in 25 years, and that I close of this community, I decided to work on, and I choose the first half of the 20th century because I'm really passionate by contemporary history. And I think it was interesting to study the role of this community into the Parisian jewelry industry and to know how Armenians have worked, consolided, grew up this industry, especially in diamond industry, in diamond cutting industry. And why this temporality? Because 23 is after the genocide and when many of Armenians coming in France through Marseille and then in Paris. And 47 because it is when many of Armenians leaving Paris for Soviet Armenia. So it was a very interesting temporality to study and on what there is nothing are ever making. So that's.
So I just got somebody asked about the books from our group. We got some information, I think. Somebody says that there's a jewelry and Armenian jewelers during the Ottoman time, something like that. I can share the link. That's about jewelers, I think, in Armenia. And another book, and there is another book called Arsen Yeremian. They have two books about Armenian jewelers.
Yes, but in Turkey, more of the time in, but very, very interesting. Yes,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Thank you for a very interesting talk. I'm from Armenia. I don't have a business background. I always work for non-profit. But listening all this, and of course, some of the things we knew also from other sources, the question I have is, Armenians has been and are so important in the diamond or jewelry trade and making. How we can make that very important part of Armenian economy, like exporting, etc. Do you have why we are not having it or any solution? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We are in conversations with the Minister of Economy. Is probably as far as I can share. There is a lot of work that needs to be done between Ministry of Economy and the local trade and local, industry members. Yes, should be done and could be done, and this industry will really increase overall revenue for the Ministry of Economy. I don't have the answer to why we are not doing it, but AJA has started conversations with them to get their support. As simple as lower export taxes so that local jewelers can exhibit their work in local, on a global platforms, right? So there's a lot of work needs to be done. I don't want to go much longer. We're trying. We're in conversations that we started recently. Maybe next year, when I see you here, I hope we'll have more answers, or you might see better results by then. But we're going to try. Yeah, we can do only that much, but we're working with them.
Just to add to that, diamond polishing has become very difficult in Armenia because India is today 97-98% of the diamonds polished are polished in India, and the competition is far too strong. And also the tremendous success of high tech in Armenia has taken away a lot of potential jewelers or diamond polishers away from the industry. So the jewelry industry, I think, has to step up and utilize current state-of-the-art facilities to be able to compete globally.
Our approach in those conversations is the ministry needs to invest in a trade locally to do exactly what Vartkess said, to improve facilities, to educate the trade, to bring in experts from outside, right? So they have to invest in first and then open up the borders to allow for the export. That's the only way. And yes, diamond polishing is slightly more complicated, and with recent tariffs, things are a little more challenging as well.
Just quick videos. What languages do you speak except English?
I speak Armenian and Russian and English.
And other people? Yeah.
I speak Spanish, Italian, English, a little bit Armenian, French, and I can understand easily Portuguese language.
Okay, thank you.
I speak Armenian, Amharic, English, and French.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So well educated.
Last one is just as part of the industry with Mr. Faber for the last 27 years, knowing Vartkess for also 27 years. What I want to say just today, because of the AGA presence, and thank you for organizing everything, right? But it's quite amazing how Armenia was not on the map until now. Like, Armenians are very discreet people, and as you said, they integrate very well, but sometimes they integrate too much. So the problem is the industry didn't realize what was the past of the Armenian, other traders, makers, jeweler, watchmakers. And I think it's about the new generation to show the world what we were, what we are, and what we will be. So thank you for organizing this amazing moment, and hopefully we meet again next year.
Thank you for the help, Philip.
No, but a big thank you to Varujan, but big thank you to Thomas and Ronnie, who are the organizers of Gem Genève, to have given the opportunity to the AJA to bring our bright designers, to select the bright designers to expose at Gem Genève. This is the second year, and we're hoping for a continuation of this. Thomas, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thomas, I did. Thank you. I did mention this to Ronnie yesterday, and I want to mention to you because you were there. What you do and the support you give us really helps dreams come true. And that's really the best thing you can do as part of giving back. So thank you very much.
Thank you to you, and have a great evening and ending of the day at Gem Genève. Thank you for your question and interest.